Now, all state of disaster measures have fallen away. President Ramaphosa announcing last night that government's lifting of the national state of disaster. This means all alert levels fall away. However, some measures will remain in place during a transitional phase. eNCA reporters are out and about to get your views. Nqobile Madlala in Johannesburg, as well as Slindelo Masikene in Polokwane. Nqobile, perhaps to start with you, what is the latest? What are ordinary citizens in Johannesburg saying?
Well, Mfundo, I think people that we've spoken to have just made it clear that it's now time to stabilize their businesses and to start looking in terms of growth going forward. What is the way and how can they work around what remains at this point? I mean, from some of the business owners, they were saying that they still feel like there's a lot more that needs to be done, but this is a good start and this is what they are happy to begin with. But I want to bring in Gauteng tourism because, of course, tourism is one of those industries that were essentially disseminated at that point. Maybe just give us an idea in terms of tourism, just how bad or hard hit was it?
First of all, as Gauteng Tourism Authority, we do welcome the announcement by the President, and we certainly are looking forward to the sector recovering, because the tourism sector is one of those crucial sectors that are key to the economy, but most importantly, it creates the jobs that we need. I mean, just to give you an example, the pre-COVID numbers that we always talk about, just industry as a whole in the country, is that tourism in 2019 contributed to 3%, contributed 3% directly to the GDP, and indirectly about 9%. And just to give you a perspective in terms of the number of people who were employed directly by the industry, in 2019 we had just over 700,000 employed directly into the sector. If you look at that number for Gauteng, at least just in excess of about 200,000 were employed in the sector, and indirectly we had 1.5 million jobs supported by the industry. So it begins to give you a sense that tourism does play an important role in just growing the economy, but mostly creating those much needed jobs that obviously in turn supports the economy.
But then do we have an industry to go back to? I mean, when you look at the numbers that you're just giving us at this point, how many businesses have folded? How many people have lost their jobs at this point? Do we have a rough estimation? And do we know if we've got an industry to go back to?
Look, when COVID hit in 2020, immediately what the industry did, being led by obviously the authorities, the tourism authorities in the country, was to put together a tourism recovery strategy. At that point, we didn't know what we were dealing with. There was a COVID pandemic that just hit, our shores. We were now placed on the National Disaster Act, kicked in. There were regulations that were put together. But we felt we could not, as an industry, could not just wait and see. So the recovery strategy or the plan was very clear. It articulated three key points that we needed to look at. Is at any given point when things get better, we really have to actually pump up demand in terms of our key source markets domestically and in the continent. The second thing was we have to continuously rejuvenate our supply side, because we can't just take it for granted that when the pandemic is under control, we'll have the industry to go back to. So continuously we would actually engage with industry to say, what are some of the things? You would remember that as the industry, there were a lot of government had put various mechanisms to assist the businesses. There were relief funds that were done for, that were, put together to assist the businesses. The third area was how do we actually create an enabling environment to grow tourism? So the enabling environment will talk to things like, when the borders open, what happens, the PCR testing, the issues of airlift, because when the borders closed, a lot of airlines stopped flying to anywhere else, including South Africa, including us as Gauteng losing a lot of airlines flying directly here. So those are the three key areas that as an industry, as a whole in the country, we said these are the three key areas that we've got to actually continuously focus on. And now that we are out of the national state of disaster, certainly, from a Gauteng Tourism Authority point of view, our brief from our shareholder and industry players and partners, very clear. We've got to actually grow the economy back into the Gauteng tourism economy, that contributes to Gauteng's GDP. And we will do that by doing certain things. We've got to grow the domestic market. I think everybody has learned in the industry that domestic market is very important. We can no longer take domestic market for granted. Of course, in growing that domestic market, we've got to look at things like access to information. Do people have information on what to do in their own destination? But most importantly, we've got to address issues of price sensitivity. We'll agree that the sector was not, geared up for the domestic market. So you would see that the pricing is a challenge for a lot of domestic travelers. The other thing that we're going to do as Gauteng, which is very clear to us as part of our strategy, excuse me, is that we need to continue growing the African market. We've got to actually ensure that we enable intra-Africa travel. So you know that the world shut the continent, out. We were placed on various red lists. So we're saying for us as Gauteng, we want to contribute to the intra-Africa, trade by just encouraging Africans to travel, within the continent. So Africa as a market is very important for us. A lot of our arrivals come from the land market, and we do have interest in some of the air markets in the continent. And the second last thing that we want to do in terms of growing the economy is looking at partnering with the industry and other stakeholders and partners to actually promote the destination in key source markets. So your Europe, the Americas, the Asian markets, and where we see potential growth. And lastly, like I said to you earlier on, that Gauteng is known as being a business destination. So we want to create that pipeline. We want to resuscitate our business events industry. We want to bid for international events to come to Gauteng. But most importantly, we want to host other economic high impact events in our destination. We are known for that. We are home of the champions. We host a lot of lifestyle events. Our calendar is filling up. So we're quite excited that those things would actually assist us to grow back the sector.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, I think clearly put right there, Nomfundo, you can hear that Gauteng has a plan, and they're saying that they want to grow the industry, and that's the way forward now.
All right, let's get more reaction now in Polokwane this time. Slindelo, what has been the sentiment there among residents following the lifting of the national state of disaster?
Mixed reactions here in Polokwane, mostly concerns around job creation, and that the past 2 years have been quite difficult, especially on those who lost their jobs. Saying that, it's all good and well for the president to announce the end of the national state of disaster, but really what does it mean in terms of ensuring that some more relief is going to be provided for South Africans who suffered quite greatly. I'm going to speak to some of those residents of Polokwane just to give us their sentiments. Ntate o jwang?
Mama.
Ke teng. Utlwile ba re lockdown e fedile. How do you feel about that?
Lockdown e fedile mama, e tlise re tla gona go ema nyana. Ra gona go ema ra o market ra lebella gore ka tšeng re gona go beya. Mara tot so fere ge fedile our relieved e fedile mama. So e re tshwentse nako e ntse le gona ka baka la gore re sena movement, re sena gore ka yo tšea eNCA ra beya ra gona go thiba-thiba. Le ga nyalo mo re le ngona go tetse batho ba bantši ba ntse re tseba ba fela ba namela taxi di-bus ba ya mmerekong. So ga nyalo mmereko ya bona e fedile. Re sa tsebe gore mohlomong ka re lockdown e fedile, but space tša bona tša mmereko di tla ba gona ba kgona go ya mmerekong ba berekela bana ba bona. Ee mama, a go na le molato mama.
I'm going to try and make my way to the other side of this intersection where I had spoken earlier to one of the women here, one of the street vendors here. You can see that, in fact, one of the effects of the lockdown is the fact that those who were unemployed had to find other ways and means to make a living. And one of those is to sell products as well as food here on the streets of Polokwane, here in the CBD. I'm here with one of the ladies who's got a catering business here. Le guy me. Ke teng. O tlile ba re lockdown e fedile.
re thabile ho feta lockdown e fedile re thabile ho thaba re tla kgona ho bereka le free re leboga o re a leboga be re tshuile re sa gane tla fela ka pela re a leboga re thabile la mafelelo
ne jwang lockdown for wena le family ya hao
ne so right ne mo business ne so right lo ka mwa be so right no rapela modimo re thusha hore e fele so re thabile go dima bane ba nna ntse re fedile so we are free now re lokolo tla kgona ho bereka botse re lokolo di custom tla kgona ho ja freely because ha a lockdown a isa le gone ne sa re tshwara botse total. Thank you.
Some of those sentiments here echoing a lot of what's been said about about the effects of the lockdown and how people really suffered in terms of job losses.
Kiteng
ne le jwang lockdown for
hey nje se bose mam le mebereko batho ba feletse ra rekisha dikuku di biscuits a go sana ne bereko mara ga nje le re a thaba ka baka la gore at least re peterenyana re boetse ske
wena me ne le jwang lockdown for Oh, okay. Okay, well, just some of the sentiments here in Polokwane. People really complaining around the issue of jobs and that they're hoping that now that the lockdown is over, that there'll be more job creation. The employment has been one of the many sentiments I've been hearing all morning here in Polokwane.
No, unemployment is most definitely a concern. Slindelo, thank you very much for that update. She is in Polokwane and Nqobile Madlala is here in Johannesburg. Now, how